Hello and welcome to our weekly celebration of Living Spirit at Vita Spiritual Learning Center. It's wonderful to be with you today. Now in 2022, we have been following the theme of everyday wonder, part of why it's wonderful to be with you today. And during the month of August, the focus is on nature. And the topic this week is the water of life. Now, last time I talked about your relationship with nature, but this time I'm talking about the physics and metaphysics of nature, and in particular water. You know, at either end of this human phase of your soul's journey, you're just a bunch of seemingly disorganized stardust. Ralph Waldo Emerson says, everything in nature contains all the powers of nature, and everything is made of one hidden stuff. You might want to call that God stuff. So for a divine high purpose, some stardust is organized into you and me and nature and all of the material world, at least for a little while. And no matter what distinction you may conjure up between yourself and nature, humans are nature. And so this week I explore the nature and the supernatural of water. Now, for me, establishing a mentality that nature and I are all the same thing, I will say is a work in progress. As far back as I can remember, I have gravitated to human-made gadgets that do something. And of those, in particular, are gadgets that have wheels and that can transport me, whether it was a tricycle or roller skates or a bicycle or a mini bike or a car or a motorcycle or a riding lawnmower or, to a lesser degree, things like boats and planes. Now, even though those gadgets are also organized stardust and therefore are part of nature and an aspect of God, it is not as if I can plant a seed and grow a motorcycle, right? Alan Watts says, you didn't come into this world, you came out of it, like a wave from the ocean. You're not a stranger here. Now, my thinking has evolved and continues to evolve. I affirm that I am part of nature and nature is a part of me. I affirm that I am in concert with nature and that nature is in concert with me. And as I affirm this, I feel more of an affinity and an appreciation of the natural world. So something I do now is I talk to nature. Whether it's an animal or a plant or a mineral, just like I talk with you now. And I find that as I converse with nature, I have a greater reverence that everything is alive in some way, both materially and ethereally. Everything is alive in some way. I am now mindful that my choices and my actions can change or alter those forms of life that maybe previously I didn't recognize as life, right? But I now recognize my part in the life that transitions, right? I see where my life fits into the appearance of all these other lives. And in so doing, I open to being more compassionate, to make more compassionate choices, and be more mindful of the ways in which I am interacting with nature. Now, as my consciousness of nature heals and grows, I have a greater awareness of God that is all around me, materialized and particularized as, at least for a time, as what we call nature. And as an extension of universal mind in this human phase, and knowing I live in a reciprocal universe, I am of nature and nature is of me. So it seems like a time to revisit some isms and the science of mind and spirit, the theology, the ism And it's really the same ism that is an ism that applies to all of New Thought, the New Thought movement, but it's not new because it's the same ism that is the theology of Hinduism or mystical Judaism known as the Kabbalah. And that ism is Panoentheism. And Panoentheism is an extension or maybe a springboard up beyond pantheism. So pantheism is a doctrine which identifies God with the universe or regards the universe as a manifestation of God. Panentheism is the doctrine that God is greater than the universe and includes and interpenetrates it, that the divine intersects every part of the universe and also extends beyond space and time. So when I mention isms or theology or ontology, I try to relate this terminology to everyday living, right? Nice fancy 50-cent words. What does it mean to you and to me? Well, the science of mind is a teaching and a philosophy and a way of life. And that teaching, philosophy, and a way of life is one that is intended to heal and grow your consciousness. Ernest Holmes, the founder of the science of mind, synthesized a process that was derived from 19th century New Thought works here in the United States and parts of Europe. And he synthesized that with ancient wisdom, right? And the idea is not new, but we apply metaphysical principles to your life through simple spiritual practices. And it's really just building off of be transformed through the renewing of your mind. So what is mind? Well, mind in the science of mind is the universal mind that is local to you and to me. Spiritual practices tend to heal any stinking thinking. In place of that, it tends to create constructive and positive thinking. And spiritual practices start with the God of your understanding. So to begin with, God is the all good in your life. Whatever good you can imagine that you recall, that you experience, that you notice in your life, that is the God operative in your life, and therefore the God of your understanding. So spiritual practices will heal and nurture and grow that understanding. So each time you meditate, each time you treat or affirm or pray, each time you do some form of spiritual study, or maybe you're using journaling as a spiritual practice, each time you vision, meaning you ask yourself, what is the divine high idea in this moment, for this day, in my life, in my work, in my relationships? What is the divine high idea? And as you rest with that, the quality, the character of God that vision brings forth is what comes forward in your life. And as you give yourself over to sacred service or see your spiritual counselor, see your practitioner, as you give or tithe as a spiritual practice, and as you're doing right now, joining together in beloved community, all of this is healing and growing your consciousness. And the overarching intention is for you to know and live God that is already within you, that surrounds you, that you live spirit as a love, a peace, a joy, a compassion that exceeds all conscious understanding. For you are pure spirit at your essence. As we know, the water is essential to the kind of life we know here and now on earth. And from the dawn of humanity, water has come to be a universal symbol of the flow of the supernatural life. It becomes a symbol of the circulation of living spirit. It is that stream of consciousness, stream being the operative word, that heals and grows and creates your best life. And the good of God is like a river of these qualities of affluence, of abundance, of prosperity, of artistry and creativity, of line and balance and order and power. It is like a stream, a river of the qualities of beauty and wisdom and freedom and health and well-being and compassion. And it is flowing in you, it is flowing to you and through you as your consciousness, as you are able and ready to be and live those qualities. You know, Yeshua's Apostle John tells this famous story of the Samaritan woman at the well. And as you probably know, of the four synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, John is perhaps the most metaphysical. John is the one that is being esoteric and being philosophical. And it becomes obvious in the dialogue between Yeshua and the Samaritan woman that this is really about spiritual teaching and consciousness. It's not just about water at the well. And after a few exchanges in their dialogue, and they are both talking about their respective predecessors, the status quo of the teaching of the time, there comes a kind of a turning point in the conversation when Yeshua says this: "But whoever drinks of the water which I give, you shall never thirst. But the same water which I give you shall become in you a well of water springing up to life everlasting." Pretty powerful stuff. Yeshua is making a pitch here for a new teaching, for a new spirituality that doesn't depend on dogma or credo or intercessionaries. And this new spirituality is a direct connection, a direct communion to that one life. So to paraphrase this in the form of a spiritual teaching, it is to say, but whoever learns of the new teaching I give you, this is Yeshua saying this just using the direct language, but whoever learns of the new teaching I give you, you shall never need more. But the same teaching which I give you shall become in you a well of consciousness that leads to life everlasting. So you might affirm this with that encounter that you have with nature that is water. So here is a first of a few affirmations I'm sharing with you today. I drink the healing waters of living spirit. So allow the water to not only support your body temple, but be open to a transformative flow of new thought. That's kind of what Yeshua was saying, and using that metaphor of water at the well. Now, one of the customs of the ancient Hebrews was a ritual cleansing in a blessed pool called a mikvah, and the practice was to immerse the person in this blessed water. And the Torah specified, which of these impurities needed to be ritually cleansed in this way. And there were other forms of ritual cleansing that didn't involve a mikvah, but the mikvah was one that applied to these certain impurities. And it was still something that was a ritual that was symbolic of something. The ancient Hebrews were very concerned about keeping their teaching true to its origin and its prophecies. They were very concerned about the teaching becoming distorted or diluted if it was kind of blended with other teachings of the day or other teachings that might by happenstance come along. But in the Hebrew tradition, in Judaism, the teaching is deliberately advanced through prophecy, right? Now, accepting what is prophecy and then integrating into the Hebrew teaching is a kind of a lengthy process. And so over time, the arc of Judaism does evolve more and more metaphysically. It departs more and more from dogma and credo. But at the time of Yeshua, it had been approximately 500 years since any prophecy was accepted into the Hebrew teaching. And folks like Yeshua and John the Baptizer felt Judaism had become static and rigid and dogmatic, and both felt called to move Judaism forward, with or without the blessing of the Hebrew leadership. So John the Baptizer began using this ritual immersion process, again sort of springboarding off the idea of the mikvah, but instead of doing it in a mikvah, which would possibly been blasphemous in the way that John the Baptizer was doing it, but he was baptizing folks in a river. And what the baptism process was intended, in part, to help folks open to a new spirituality, to sort of break free from that dogma and that rigidness of the Hebrew teachings of the day. Yeshua was one of the folks that John the Baptizer baptized in this way. And that experience, as it's relayed in the Synoptic Gospels, was that moment of clarity that Yeshua had in his ministry. And his ministry then, he was clear, was advancing beyond the Judaism of his time. So with every shower, with every bath, with every swim, with every dip you have, with that part of nature that is water, you might affirm this: I swim in the healing waters of living spirit. As I immerse in the waters of living spirit, I survive and I thrive. Now, water that is within you and water that nourishes all of nature is the simile and the metaphor for living spirit that is within you, and is the same living spirit that is in everything in the world around you. And therefore, with every rain or river or lake or bay or ocean you encounter, you might affirm something like this: as healing waters of living spirit flow through me, I survive and I thrive. Now, as it is known to humans, nature, stardust organized as you and me, organized as plants, as animals, and the earth. And this is all one phase of the one life. They all happen to, intersect and occur while we're having this earthly phase of our soul's journey. But it is a phase of the one life in part, and is part of an ongoing grand organizing principle. It is the self-giving nature of the infinite creative that creates the entire universe. And therefore, this phase of your soul's evolution includes learning to be an excellent steward of the blessings already so in your life. You eat well and exercise to be an excellent steward of your body temple. And you do that in part so that you can engage in spiritual practices that grow your consciousness, which means you're being an excellent student of your thoughts and your feelings and beliefs. And you do that so that you can be an excellent steward of the world in which you and I now live. And so being that excellent steward means an appreciation and a gratitude for all the good, all the God in you and as your life. It means to bless the world as you are blessed. So then affirm, I am grateful for the healing waters of living spirit flowing through me. So let's turn our attention in prayer. And just knowing that God is all there is. I know that God is the infinite creator, and God is all the creation. And in that, all creation is imbued and surrounded by God. God is a living spirit alive in all of nature. The love, peace, joy, and compassion of living spirit flows like a divine water through all creation and all consciousness. And knowing that is God, I know that I am in this divine flow. And what is true for me is true for all beings everywhere. Therefore, you are also in this divine flow. every person, place, and thing is simultaneously, naturally, and supernaturally alive in living spirit. So I speak my word that the water in our lives is appreciated, blessed, and it is also powerfully transformative. I know and trust that you and I commune with the one life as we commune with nature. My intention to be an excellent steward of water and of all nature means I am an excellent steward of my consciousness. I greet living spirit and all of nature as living spirit lovingly returns the greeting, for that is the holy circulation of the one life. So feeling in the flow and the circulation of that all good, I just bless the world as I am blessed. I give thanks for this answered prayer, for this communion, this connection in spirit through nature. And I release my word into the law of mind in action, knowing as it is spoken, it is so. That affinity for nature, that blessing of water, is transforming heart and mind right now. The greater good of God, the love and light of living spirit, appears strong and bright right here and right now. And now it is, and so it is. I let it be. Amen. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today. You have a wonderful week, and we will see you next time.